You're listening to the Sixers Beat with your host, Derek Bodner, right here on LibertyBallers.com and LibertyBroadcast.co.
This is a late night edition of the Sixers Beat. Obviously, the news today, a while ago today at this point, we had some scheduling issues, mostly in the fact that my power went out for like 4 hours. But earlier today, I believe it was Mark Stein and Zach Lowe initially had the report that the Sixers were in deep discussions to move up to the number one pick. A lot of speculation about what that could mean. Essentially, Zach Lowe, though, went on SportsCenter and said that he can't see this deal falling through, something of that sort, which is a pretty incredible statement to make before a deal is made. It seems pretty locked in. The only reports we've really had are the number 3 pick and an additional future first-round pick, which was from Lowe. And then I believe Adrian Wojnarowski said the number 3 pick and the Lakers pick. And I believe Steven Kyler at one point said that trade plus a Sixers first-round pick in the future. Regardless of what it is, this is freaking incredible.
What a time to be alive, my guys. This is just... I mean, I know that we have talked a little bit about Fultz and the possibility of trading up in the past, but a lot of that, the subtext behind a lot of it was, it's never going to happen because there's really not a lot of precedent for it historically, let alone for the Sixers, and yet here we are. It certainly looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you look, I think it was, I saw this from, I believe it was Kurt Heelan on NBC Sports, but I think it's happened 3 times since 1980. And that's being a little bit generous with it because of trades like the Andrew Wiggins trade, which happened quite a while after that, but it was agreed upon then.
Right.
You're basically talking about, Chris Webber, Brad Daugherty, and then Andrew Wiggins. And that's it. This does not happen. This is very, like you said, pretty much unprecedented.
It's amazing. And honestly, this is better than the Andrew Wiggins trade because that was just sort of born out of necessity because of these crazy factors of LeBron going home. I mean, like, just in terms of team building, like the NBA doesn't see trades like this. The 2 teams with pretty much the most assets in the league and the most ways they can go about trying to build a contender, meeting up and making a trade like this. What struck me about this was not only are the Sixers involved in this, but this just never happens in the NBA. Like, this is one of the juicier trades I've ever seen.
Right. This is like this happens in the NFL and we mentioned this in the podcast we recorded yesterday. This is something that, like, hey, NFL teams make trades at the top of the draft and there are movers and shakers there. But there's very little precedent for 2 teams in the top 3, 2 teams in the same division making an exchange like this. So, like, before we even get to the fallout of it and the positives and negatives and all that, like, we just got to take a moment to recognize how rare this is in general, that the discussions have even gotten this far, because it's not like the people who are reporting on this are like low-level beat reporters in City X. This is Woj is reporting this, and Mark Stein is reporting it. Like, anybody, any reporter of record is involved here, and this is extraordinary for 2 teams that are picking in the top 3.
It's fun. Like,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Before we even get to any of the details of it, like, it's just cool to see the Sixers involved in such a massive trade. This was those couple of hours on Twitter, just hitting refresh, trying to get every next little detail, and sometimes getting it, sometimes not, it was great. It was exhilarating, honestly. It was very cool.
I was driving to dinner after I posted the initial story about the reports, and I'm like half trying to not steer into a traffic wall or into another car while I'm trying to pull up Twitter updates and different reports that are coming out. Like, it was just, and maybe that speaks to how insane I am about all this, but it's a huge deal.
I think there were a few people on 95 that could have gotten in an accident, put it that way.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case.
It's I mean, when you start looking, forget about even trading for the pick. Oh, that's a huge thing as well. But you start looking at the core that they've put together of 20, 21. Well, I guess Fultz is still 19, 19, 21, 22-year-old kids. For them all to be acquired in such a short span and look like they fit so perfectly together. I mean, they could have walked out of 3 consecutive drafts with the best player in the draft, and that's a pretty easy projection, health permitting. That is insane. There's really only one corollary there, and that's the Seattle Supersonics / OKC Thunder. I know a lot of people say the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't think LaVine and Wiggins are at this level. I think if you had to pick the top 4 prospects of this group, I think the Sixers would have 3 of them, and again, not counting health. This is pretty special, and we made this argument before. I think we had a podcast where we argued about trading for the number 1 pick, and at that point, it was just some brainchild of Bill Simmons, who, ironically, at this point now is complaining about the trade that he pretty much suggested. He's complaining about that happening.
Shout out to Bill.
It was a pretty easy yes. It is a very rare opportunity to get a guy like this, and especially to get a talent like this who fits. It is going to be covering this team. If they just get a little bit of help, covering this team is going to be incredible for the next 5 years.
Right,
and watching the team too, since there's probably more people listening to this that care about watching the team than covering.
Oh, certainly, yeah, no, and I think both of you guys in the aftermath of this have already mentioned this in writing and tweets and so on and so forth. But this is such a rare opportunity that you can get a guy who I think has legitimate star / superstar potential that also is the best possible fit as a player with the core pieces you already have in place. Like, I think there are people that are concerned, like, yes, there is an opportunity cost to moving, and we don't know the final parameters of the deal yet, but there is an opportunity cost of moving future picks and assets to move up 2 slots in the draft. But look at it this way. In any draft, especially in a draft where I feel, and I know you guys feel, and the rest of the draft community feels for the most part, that there is a very clear number 1 guy there. And not only is he a clear number 1 guy, he is a perfect guy to just slot right into the lineup that day 1, you don't have to worry about, where is he going to play? Does his skill set fit with the guys that are here? There are none of those concerns. Basically, the only thing you have to go into the season thinking is, how long is this going to take to develop? And how long are these guys going to take to build that chemistry and become the players that we think they can be? And that's an amazing problem to have. If it's just a matter of, hey, we got to wait 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, that's okay. If you know that you have guys that have superstar level potential and your biggest concern is when it's all going to come together, I will sign on the dotted line for that any day of the week.
Yeah. They to be like the last member of the Sixers core, to move up 2 spots, and let's say, I know Woj reported that it's the Lakers pick and number 3. So the 2018 unprotected Lakers pick. To me, I saw that right away, and there is nobody who is more protective of the Sixers assets than me, because that pick is gold. I don't want to. I got into a few arguments with people today. That could be a really good pick. We've talked about Doncic and Porter. Like, that has the chance to be a really good player. That's the price of doing business to get Markelle Fultz. That is something that you just do, because
a Fultz in the hand is worth 2 Doncics in the bush, or something like that. I think that's the way the saying goes.
Yeah, that's how it's gone for all these years. They, God, how many discussions did we have about talent versus fit? Like, how much should we be valuing one?
It's over. It's over if they get him. That's it. If they get him, it's done. That discussion's done.
Yeah, barring another Danny Ainge special. God, we were so close. This would be the all timer. I mean, this would be.
Well, they were close to trading Okafor too. You've got 2 GMs where it would be another Colangelo special too.
This would be Danny Ainge's Mona Lisa, though, if this wasn't true. And like you said, people have reported that, like, national reporters have said, barring a collapse, this is going to get done. So that's what we're going to go by. And if not, everybody can laugh at this podcast the next day and the 5 other ones. But it's just that Markelle
people
Fultz,
already laugh at us anyway, man. So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
That's a good point. He is the best blend of talent and fit. He's the best player on the board, and he fits in perfectly with these guys. And that is a dream scenario. It's like I feel like I'm not even making sense right now just because I'm stunned 6 hours later that looks like it's going to go down at least.
But imagine if it was framed as a number 3 pick and Michael Carter-Williams for the number 1 pick. Like you would be laughed off the planet. And that's essentially what it's going to end up being. It is, I mean, for all the shit that was given, that Lakers pick is never going to convey. It's, who knows what's going to happen with the pick swaps. I'll tell you what, man. You could have had the 5th pick in MCW. Yeah. You could have the number 1 pick. It's your choice.
And thank God it didn't convey. Because if it was Chris Dunn and the 3rd pick, you'd get laughed out of the building too. But the fact that it's unprotected next year, the 20% chance, it looks like the lottery gods were smiling on the Sixers all those years.
They did. The Lakers keeping the pick 3 consecutive years has helped the Sixers immensely. That's absolutely true. What a world! I don't even know what to say after that. It's been pretty crazy.
I mean, do we want to get into Fultz as a prospect? Because I know that we've touched on him in
I don't know
spurts,
if I really have that.
I don't know if we've really dived all that deep into him. And this kid he's pretty amazing as a player. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because again, this is all still in principle and theoretical, and I don't want to go overkill and wake up tomorrow and the deal fell apart. Danny Ainge is a dick and everything, and Terry Rozier single-handedly ruined the trade. But we're headed in this direction. It looks like right now.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I also don't want to get too deep into it at 11:20 p.m. on a day when I woke up at 5 a.m. So I don't know how coherent I could be about any draft talk at this point. It is amazing, though, you look at it, and let's say that those parameters are true. You have Fultz, Simmons, Embiid, Saric, still have the Kings pick, and still have one other pick. So you have the Kings pick and your own pick in the next 2 drafts. I'll tell you what, and I know a lot of people are worried about how much you're giving up, but having that starting spot with those future picks, still the Kings pick and your own pick, and also max cap room. I mean, if you can't get from point A to point B, and point B doesn't necessarily need to be a championship because that takes a lot of luck as well. But if Brian Colangelo can't make himself relevant with this, then we were doomed from the beginning anyway, because this is one hell of a starting point. It would, what you have to go out there and target when you have these 3 guys next to him. I mean, this should be very doable and very quickly. I mean, this could change. We don't even have necessarily time to talk about this, but this would have drastic changes on free agency too, and a free agent period where they have real legitimate money to go out there and attract guys with.
No more Kyle Lowry worrying if
that was exactly what I was going to say, Rich, was that I don't think there's any concern about Lowry if Fultz is the guy they go and get, because I don't see them giving a max contract to someone playing the same position that the number 1 pick in the entire draft is going to play. And so, I mean, I know that they've been throwing it around for a while, but I guess the only question that it brings up is, does this change Ben Simmons' theoretical label as a quote-unquote point guard in their mind?
It brings up the question, as opposed to let's say they draft Malik Monk, then Ben Simmons is really the only primary initiator on the team. Now you have 2. It'll be interesting to see because, Brett Brown said after the year, obviously, no, we're going to throw the ball into him after a team scores a bucket and he's going to bring the ball up the floor. We'll see if that happens. Obviously, I mean, the beauty of it is Markelle Fultz can play off the ball. So even if they continue to do that, or at least want to give some time to Ben Simmons doing that, Markelle Fultz is more than capable of playing on the floor with him. He is, I don't want to go too far into him. He's a very talented offensive player, man. And we really haven't talked about him too much just because it seemed inconceivable the Sixers could get their hands on him. What you don't want to get too far into this. So I've been wondering, what's the motivation for Boston?
I guess that's the $1 million question, right? So some of the reports have been, and Derek, I think you're probably more plugged in than maybe I am or Rich is, but there's been reports out there that some of this is, there's speculation it might be tied to a 3-way deal with Chicago for Jimmy Butler, and that's the reason why it's all picks involved, because they want to stock up on as many fungible assets as they can. And so I could buy that, but even still, like, the whole thing is, it seems very muddy right now. So, and again, because of how I view this draft, and I know you guys view it the same way, Fultz is the clear number one guy to me. So regardless of what Boston is trying to get out of this, it just doesn't seem all that smart on their end to pass on the clear best prospect here when they seem like they have a long way to go, regardless of the route they're taking in the future.
I mean, the only thing I could be thinking is that they believe they can get Gordon Hayward. They want to trade for Paul George or Jimmy Butler, and they think that's going to get him a title. That's the only thing I could be thinking, because I'm with you. I've been saying from the beginning, I thought their best play was to draft Markelle Fultz and do what they had to do to build a long-term team around him. We'll see. It looks like Danny might have different plans.
I can't really figure out what's worse. I don't really agree with competing now just because, or going all in to compete now because the Warriors are so good. But on the other hand, like, if you're going to go the long route, the best option would be to just draft Fultz, right? Because, I mean, God, there is speculation that they really like Josh Jackson over the past couple of days. And, man, like, look, with the caveat that nobody knows exactly how the draft's going to turn out. If Markelle Fultz isn't the top guy on your board, man, you're really going away from the consensus.
Yeah, like, what are you even doing? Like, I don't even know what you're watching at that point.
And, you know, I forget who I saw this tweet from, but it was a good tweet. It might have been Ben Thompson, the great Danny Ainge, who traded up to draft Kelly Olynyk over Giannis. So let's not act like he can't make a mistake in the draft, and if he thinks Jackson's a better prospect, then it should cause you to reevaluate everything, because he has had misses, as everybody does. But
he's such a weird GM, though, because his trading record is excellent.
Oh, yeah,
but his draft record is very spotty. So this is a combination of the two here.
Well, so speaking of, do you guys think any of the, so there are definitely some detractors of this trade. I'm sure you guys have seen this in your mentions and elsewhere as well. Do you guys think that, because this is something I believe based on what I've read so far from fans of ours, do you guys think some of the backlash to the trade or some of the hesitation is just that there's a general distrust of Brian Colangelo to make this move? Because I feel like if Sam Hinkie was in charge and this exact same rumor was out there, the people who are our diehard fans and our, like, core audience, I feel like they'd be all in and not even really consider the ramifications. Whereas right now, I feel like the vast majority that I've seen are very excited, but there is a pretty sizable percentage of the fan base that's like, I don't know about this. And I think part of that at least can be attributed to the distrust of Colangelo more broadly.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that as well. And we'll see. I mean, obviously, you know, the exact details of the trade aren't official yet. The trade isn't official yet. But if Sam Hinkie made this deal with just the same exact deal, I feel like this would get pretty much a 100% approval rating. I think this is something he would do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
yeah, I got into that debate today, and the argument was basically that he valued quantity of picks because he knew that he wasn't going to get everyone right. But he also, I mean, he basically staked his entire reputation and basketball career on the fact that drafting at the top of the draft has far more value than even a couple slots behind. Because if he felt like, if he didn't feel like the number one pick had a much greater chance at success, he would have, I don't know, signed a free agent or two, won 10 more games, and drafted, Brandon Ingram instead of Ben Simmons. It's very much in line with what Hinkie was going for. I think it's pretty clear that the number one pick has a much greater odds of success.
Wasn't the main fear for Colangelo that he would trade these high value picks for veterans that needed to be maxed out, who were just slightly above average but weren't going to win you anything? I mean, this is not that. So
complete opposite.
It's the exact opposite. So I mean, it's what you open the podcast with there. 19, 21, 22. That's how old the three core members of the Sixers are. And if you can't get behind that with the talent level of those three players and the matching skill sets and all the other things they still have in the cupboard, I don't really know what to tell you.
Yeah, like, I mean, to put it bluntly, they're not trading for fucking Jermaine O'Neal. Like, this is not some of the moves that Colangelo has made in the past at other stops. This is the biggest blue chip prospect in the draft, the guy who fits amazingly with the guys I already have on hand. Like, I don't know how you could possibly spin this into a negative. And you guys know I'm more than happy to take the side of negativity. I'm not exactly sunshine and rainbows over here at all times, but when you look at the outcome of this potential deal, and with keeping in mind that it is still a potential deal at this point and nothing's been finalized, it's very hard to find a way to complain about this. And we'll see what the final result is, but come on, man, like, live a little bit. This is fun. These are the moments as a fan of, or somebody who follows the basketball team. This is what you're waiting for. This is exciting shit, man.
He turned 19 2 weeks ago. He played that entire freshman season at 18. It's insane when you think that Josh Jackson is 2 years older than him and has a broken ass jump shot. And people are going to complain about. I mean, I get, like Rich said, that Lakers pick can end up being a very high value pick, but you hope maybe that Lakers pick could end up being a talent as good as and that fits as well as Markelle Fultz. Like you said, live a little bit.
And the Kings pick well, we'll see. But if it's the Woj deal, the Kings pick could still be here, and that's a big deal in a couple years.
For
Especially
sure.
when you have 3 stars already on roster.
Yeah, like, I mean, we've been having this debate for years. You want needle movers. You want guys who are going to push the program forward. And Markelle Fultz, in my opinion, and I think in your guys' opinion too, he's the type of guy that pushes the program forward. And he fits like a glove alongside Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. You need him to play make for people, he can do that. You need him to guard the 1 and 2 spot, he can do that. You need him to be a catch and shoot guy, he can do that. Like, there's no way you can tell me that this deal would not be a massive net positive for the Sixers.
And when I put my big board out the other day, I didn't spend too much time on Fultz, but I did write, like, hey, it did not take me long to figure out that this was the best guy in the class. I was pretty much there at the end of November after watching him play. And yeah, he's just really good. And if the Sixers can get him, I think this is going to be a lot of fun starting next year.
I feel like we're just gushing a lot, and it's probably the proper response here. Is there anything to be negative about here? Is there any cynicism or?
This is a reaction pod, not an analysis pod. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that's true.
No room for nuance at 11:30 at night. So
that much is definitely true. Yeah, no, that's.
So it sounds like there are various reports that they're trying to get him in for a not a workout, but like
just a meeting,
physical and an interview. Yeah, tomorrow. Do we think this happens this weekend, or do we have to wait? Do we have to go? 6 days to figure out whether or not this is really going to happen?
For my sanity, I hope it's this weekend, because if I have to watch Boston make the pick at 1 without any indication that it's going to be or that Fultz is going to be sent to the Sixers, I will lose my mind. Like, for my own personal sanity, I can't do it, and I refuse to do it. So if Danny Ainge and Brian Colangelo are out there listening to this, get this shit done and restore my sanity or maintain my sanity, whichever one. But I hope that's the case.
Yeah, and I'll basically have to mute all of Sixers Twitter if they hold out until draft day, because that would be brutal. My guess is, the Sixers are going to have him in on Saturday. By the way, that De'Aaron Fox workout is going to be awkward if that goes through.
That's going to be something.
That Brett Brown talk. Hey, De'Aaron, great job. They're kind of like just pushing Fultz to the side, like, don't let him see you. In the background there, at Camden. Yeah, I think they'll have him in for physical. I know David Aldridge said they're going to need to meet with him before they pull the trigger on that trade. But yeah, my guess is that, just from reading the tea leaves here and everything, I would hope it gets done this weekend.
It really, talk about coming out of nowhere. I was out doing an errand. I actually recorded a podcast earlier today with Mike O'Connor talking about everybody except Markelle Fultz. And then I took like an hour break. And while I was coming back, I got a text from an agent like, hey, do you think this has any legs to it? And I'm like, oh shit, what does that mean? And then I get back and it hit me like a fucking ton of bricks. This came out of nowhere. And at first I expected it to be like, some not really reliable reporter that would generate some discussion, but we'll move on from it in a day or two. And then I saw it was Stein and Fultz, or Stein and Lowe, and then Woj came out, and it was insanity. Absolutely insane. This will be one of those, like, do you remember, in 20 years, you'll be asking yourself if you remember where you were when you heard about the Markelle Fultz news, if it happens.
Yeah, I'm knocking on every piece of wood that is within a reachable radius of me right now, because we're from Philadelphia, man. I've seen a lot closer things fall apart at the last second. So
I will say, though, the people I've talked to, it sounds very much
certainly
like a borderline done deal.
Yeah, and like everybody that's reported it, at least that I've paid attention to, they're all people whose word I trust. These aren't people that just...
It's not a radio host in Phoenix.
Right. Wow. Shots fired. No, I mean, they're not people that just talk just to talk. Like, this is real. And it's right there. So, I'm still trying to process it a little bit, that the Sixers could potentially have the best player in this draft too, after they got Simmons last year, after they got Embiid a few years ago. It's hard to wrap my mind around the fact that after all this tough basketball that we've had to watch, that they might be one of the most exciting teams in the league very quickly.
Good for Brett Brown too, by the way.
I couldn't be happier for him.
People who brought up how many point guards he's played, and we've talked about how the poor Brett narrative can be a little bit overblown, but like, he has legitimately played 600 point guards, and 400 of them have been like D-League level players. To have Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons in the fold has to be, he just has to be so happy right now.
I don't know, guys. It was 3 wasted seasons, though.
Oh my God. Okay, Derek Eskin, what the hell are you doing over there?
How dumb is that comment going to look at this, or that whole narrative? Not a comment. It wasn't one person. That whole point of discussion. How dumb is that going to look if the Embiid Simmons score comes to fruition?
Are we sure that Markelle Fultz is coming over? Can we confirm that first before we get too happy?
The Chesapeake Bay Bridge. He's got to make it over there.
He's got to make it up to the East Coast first.
Yeah, he. It's funny. I'm just thinking back to that night when he was checking out the Sixers game right now, where nobody knew who he was, and he was checking it out, and he said it would be cool if the Sixers would have him. I mean, it's even crazier to me now that the Celtics basically had him for the whole pre-draft process to themselves. Like, he went up there, he took pictures with all of the banners, and they were like, you know what, we're good. And I just don't really understand it, but this whole thing is amazing. Just two historical rivals trading such a high value asset, and it's going to be fun over the next couple of years to look back at this.
Speaking of, and this is another thing that, like, I know that we have tended to dismiss this in the past. There's also an undercurrent of people who are like, "Oh, you can't make that deal with the Celtics." I know they're in the division. I know that you got to compete with them, but like, the Sixers are considerably worse than Boston is right now, to the point that, like, if your primary concern is like, oh, that might help them later, you're not even in the same stratosphere as Boston is as a current team. And like, I don't think that anything that you're giving Boston right now is like, oh man, that's definitely going to make them a contender, because people have been thinking about that, have been considering that same opinion with the Nets pick, that now they're just like, oh, whatever, we're giving it up so the Sixers can take that pick instead. So the idea that sacrificing these assets to Boston is going to be like the killing blow for the Sixers or anybody else just seems comical to me.
Well, the other one I get is this is going to be a Billy King trade in a couple of years. You can't Billy King a trade when you're trading for a 19-year-old.
Yeah, you're not trading for washed up Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. This is not even close.
Like, you have this kid for 9 years. You basically have him under control for 9 years. The Sixers are in a spot where, let's say one of these three guys doesn't work out for any reason. They still have two studs and the Kings pick and another first-round pick and room for two max free agents. It's insanity. It's insanity. Oh, it really, for a team that's been irrelevant for the better part of 30 years, outside of one brief little glimpse in the early 2000s, this is a long time coming. This is a fan base that deserves this. It's going to be great.
Should be great. Knock on wood.
Should be great. Should be great.
Again, I have to emphasize, we are from Philadelphia. A lot of other shit has gone wrong that we didn't expect to. So I don't count my chickens before they hatch.
Yeah, God, remember when the Sixers were going to get Omer Asik and we all went crazy? God, that was when that one fell by the wayside. That's what I'm thinking of right now. It is amazing though.
Remember when the Joel Anthony?
Oh, that was a big trade.
Yep.
Trade fell through. That was a blockbuster.
What did he do? Did he fail his physical? That was pretty crushing.
I think somebody else failed a physical.
Yeah, that's right.
It was donuts.
We're not talking about that trade at midnight. Come on, guys.
This is about the time to talk about that trade, but yeah.
So yeah, but it's just funny that, you know, throughout the process, we've basically overanalyzed all these small deals. Like, this is a gigantic deal. Like, this, it's too bad this happened on a Friday, because this would have led every national show tomorrow. This would have led PTI it might lead PTI on Monday if it goes through on Sunday. Because who cares about baseball?
Mike Wilbon would have done the biggest heel turn in history.
Sure. Oh yeah, DC guy. Oh yeah, he would have loved that trade. I can't wait to
think of all the agonizing we had though over missing out on like Wiggins and missing out on D'Angelo Russell. Like, if Hinkie would have proposed this outcome, not that anybody knew who Markelle Fultz was, you know, back in 2014. I don't even know if his high school coach knew who he was in 2014. He got cut from his varsity team as a sophomore. But if Hinkie would have proposed this outcome with, you know, Fultz, Simmons, and Embiid, and with all the cap space and draft picks still to come, this is pretty damn close. Again, this is pretty damn close to best case scenario. It's insane.
Yeah, that's
easiest 4 years of my life I ever wasted.
It wasn't wasted, Derek. You spent it with us.
All right, you're talking me out of it, but it's still good.
All right. Well, I think people have listened to enough rambling from the three of us for now.
I just hope I have a clear direction of who I should be writing about come next week. I have like 5 scouting reports that I've kind of been like meandering through, and then I have 4 people that I'm scheduled to have podcasts with, and I have no idea what to talk about right now. So I really hope this gets finalized this weekend for my own personal sanity, but
I'm
for the listener's sanity too.
I'm thrilled that I haven't talked about Fultz yet. I've talked about every other player, so at least I can get a couple of days out of basically breaking down what we can expect for him on the Sixers, because I didn't even touch that because I just thought he was going to Boston.
It's good content. Good content. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, thank you guys for jumping on this very late night podcast, 6 hours after the news broke. Thank you, Pico, for restoring my energy in my home. And we will talk to all of you soon. Draft Thursday night. Could be an exciting weekend. Better be an exciting weekend. And like I said, talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Land the plane, Brian.
You've been listening to the Sixers Beat right here on LibertyBallers.com and LibertyBroadcast.co.
Is contacted, I attract clientele. My mic check is life or death, breathing a sniper's breath.